Greetings everyone, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, here to bring you another episode review from Season 6 of The Loud House. Today's episode is titled, I Can't. First we'll discuss the plot, and then my thoughts and critiques with my final score. So, let's get right into it. In this episode, Lisa's eyesight starts going bad and needs new glasses, but rather than trying to overcome her fear of the eye doctor, she makes a new pair of glasses that only make her vision worse, and she tries everything she can to avoid going through with her appointment, including going on the lam inside the mall and eventually a bear cave. Soon enough, she goes back to the eye doctor and her vision is restored to normal, finally having conquered her earlier fear. Well, that concludes the plot of the episode, so now we come to my thoughts and critiques. While I understood and appreciated what the episode was all about, this was an example of a story that a main character should have experienced a long time ago, and only now it's happening a few seasons too late. In other words, this kind of episode takes place too far into the series for me to believe a certified genius like Lisa could be placed in a situation such as this after everything we've seen with her character as far as her literal vision is concerned. If this episode happened back in Season 1, and it was the first time her prescription glasses wore off and caused her vision to worsen to the point where she could no longer see what she was properly doing, her being scared of going to the eye doctor would have had a more genuine feel to it, since it could have been the typical story about a young child overcoming something they shouldn't be afraid of at all. It would have also helped in establishing Lisa's strengths and weaknesses very early when she was still more of a blank slate. Still, I in good faith cannot be critical of Lisa in this episode in terms of what she was afraid of and the rather belated development to her character. She explains how she has an irrational fear of the ophthalmologist, including getting sprayed in the eyes with puffs of air. Just like Lynn in the episode Hurl Interrupted, everyone has something they're absolutely terrified of, and a child prodigy like Lisa is no exception. I can't really blame her for doing anything and everything she could to avoid going to the eye doctor. I would have probably done the same thing if I was that scared. However, one thing in this episode I do take issue with is the complete disregard of continuity. Remember when Lisa corrected her vision in the episode Making the Grade? While I'm willing to go along with the idea that maybe the effects from her machine in that episode wore off over time, it makes you wonder why she didn't just keep using that same machine from then on to avoid wearing glasses forever. Then again, I once proposed the idea she only kept wearing glasses since she looked better and more professional with them than without. Even House of Lies sort of indicated she didn't need regular prescription glasses, suggesting the lens for her lie detector were made to accommodate her eyes. But if that were the case, then wouldn't she know what kind of lenses she would need to make for a new pair of glasses like she tried to do in this episode? Regardless, I can't remember how many times since Season 2 where her vision problems were brought up, the only recent example being the Netflix movie, although I still believe that to be non-canon. But yes, outside of sympathizing with Lisa's fear, this was one of her weakest episodes by far, and it does feel a little disappointing in terms of some of the writing. Now, don't think this entire review is going to be all bad, because there are a few good things to come out of this. It was funny seeing Lisa go through a series of events I would collectively refer to as pulling an anti-Velma Dinkley with a mix of Mr. Magoo. Rather than misinterpreting what she's seeing because she's not wearing glasses, her many misinterpretations were the result of wearing glasses. Only this time the glasses she made were doing the exact opposite of what they were supposed to do. It was a little goofy, maybe a bit sillier and potentially more deadly than necessary, but I understood the joke and it was worth a few laughs. I also appreciated how Todd the robot had a more leading role this time and actually had a mind of his own compared to all his other previous appearances. He seems to have a strange taste for fashion, and surprisingly, he knows how to work it. I guess even robots need to have a personality sometimes. And finally, there are the adults of the episode, who collectively come off as a very mixed bag. First, there's the good. I liked how Mr. and Mrs. Loud were so determined to get their daughter to the eye doctor, come artificial rain or shine, by countering all of Lisa's attempts to avoid going. It's quite surprising when you realize the parents were able to outsmart a genius with backup plans Lisa hadn't prepared for, like using Mr. Grouse's car after Lisa convinced Lana to dismantle theirs, and taking an alternative route Rita uses all the time. No matter how you choose to judge their parenting skills, this episode demonstrated how they were not going to let their daughter's problem go unresolved, and that they're getting better at handling kids. Although that last one does kind of get lost in the shuffle from time to time. But then there's Dr. Tran. So now comes the bad. You see, Lisa disappears from the examining room without a trace, and not only does Dr. Tran fail to do anything at that very moment, but she doesn't immediately tell the parents that their daughter just up and vanished. I mean, really? Why didn't she feel inclined to say anything the very second her patient was gone? Lisa said she only had 4.3 minutes before everyone realized she was missing, but shouldn't these adults have realized this in a matter of seconds? Something about the near 20-minute delayed reaction between telling the parents, again completely oblivious, that Lisa was missing and then finding her near the mall in a bear cave just felt very unnatural, especially towards the end when Lisa complimented the doctor. I, for one, cannot be mad at the parents for not reacting sooner. The eye doctor was the one who screwed up, and it would have been her fault if Lisa got mauled by a bear. So yeah, the adults were a huge hit and miss here, and you can mostly thank Dr. Tran for neglecting to alert the more responsible parents that something was wrong. She may be a good eye doctor, but definitely not a good parent if she can't even keep track of one of them in a small room. Maybe that's a rude thing to say, but the evidence speaks for itself. Overall, I won't say I hate this episode, because it did explore the more vulnerable side to Lisa's character when dealing with an irrational fear, and she and Todd did make for a few comedic moments when they were wandering through the mall and a bear cave, all because Lisa's glasses were screwing up her vision. But part of what brings the episode down is knowing how far into the series this story takes place. When you start to consider what Lisa did with her eyes in the episodes Making the Grade and House of Lies, it raises the question of why Lisa didn't just pull that previous knowledge from the past and use it here instead of complicating a situation that was and always has been completely avoidable. Again, this was the kind of episode Lisa should have had back in season 1, and it wouldn't have felt so contrived like it did here. Rita and Lynn Sr. had good parental intentions in the beginning and did everything they could to get Lisa to the eye doctor before her vision got worse, but then Dr. Tran's failure to immediately tell them their daughter had gone missing just created a very unnatural feel that could have resulted in something dangerous happening to a child. It really makes you question if Lisa's compliment to this doctor was truly genuine considering how neglectful she was. In short, this was a weak episode with some less than acceptable writing in certain places, but it did have a strong lesson on dealing with your irrational fears, and that's as good as this episode can get, in my opinion. With that said, I give I Can't a 6.7 out of 10. Well folks, that concludes my review of I Can't. I will end this review by acknowledging something I could have lived without. Apparently, Mr. Grouse keeps chicken bones in the glove box of his car and chews on them at stoplights to get the last of the meat off. You know, I would have pegged him for the kind of guy to keep empty lasagna trays in his car and lick the remains off at stoplights. I mean, come on, his obsession with lasagna has been reinforced time and time again throughout the series, and suddenly chewing on chicken bones is a thing he likes to do. As I always say, sometimes there are things about characters you like to know, and some things you don't like to know, and this was one of them. So, as far as this episode goes, what did you guys think of it? Love it? Hate it? Something you would add? Change? Keep it as it is? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe to this channel for the latest Loud House content. That's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys for the next video, but until then, this is SteamTeamRedubUK, CC Trainor-Ling, signing off. Peace out, home slices.